For John McCain, it was meant to be a defining moment in his presidential campaign. The photographic evidence that he had, in fact, fully, enthusiastically flipped from his previous position against offshore drilling, that he was a drilling guy now, that he had openly embraced what would become a central, if not the central, promise of the Republican presidential ticket.
We will drill new wells offshore, and we'll drill them now. We'll drill them now.
On July 24, 2008, with the presidential campaign at a fever pitch, Senator McCain was scheduled to make a dramatic fly-in to an oil rig off the coast of Louisiana to tout the benefits of Drill Baby Drill. It would be the energy equivalent of President Bush's aircraft carrier photo op. But it didn't happen. Instead of images of John McCain bonding with roughnecks in the Gulf of Mexico, we got images of John McCain at Schmidt's Sausage House in Columbus, Ohio, which actually seemed like a very nice place. But it was not the compete with Obama addressing Berlin, in-your-face, drill baby drill photo op that the McCain campaign really needed at the time. The oil photo op had to be canceled on very short notice in 2008. The McCain campaign claiming at the time it was because of forecasts of bad weather. And, of course, it is possible that it was the weather forecast that worried John McCain's campaign. But as the New Orleans Times-Picayune noted at the time, no one quite believed that that was really why the flight to the oil rig got called off. The Times-Pic said at the time, quote, besides the forecast for storms, it's also possible that the McCain campaign would not want to have McCain highlighting his support for increased drilling in the outer continental shelf at a time officials are dealing with a spill of an estimated 9,000 barrels of diesel fuel into the Mississippi River. Yes, awkward to hold the pro-offshore oil drilling pep rally with New Orleans and the Mississippi River soaked in spilled petroleum product, stinking like a truck stop parking lot. It was reality in that campaign, in the middle of that campaign. It was reality intruding horribly into otherwise convenient politics. That all happened during the presidential campaign of 2008, the campaign that brought us the presidency of Barack Obama, who is now, as president, seeing his own oil politics of convenience swamped by horrible, in this case, deadly oil reality. The president having announced his own drill baby drill intentions as part of an effort to pass comprehensive climate change legislation not even a month before the Deepwater Horizon massive offshore oil rig exploded and sank 50 miles off the Gulf Coast. It's now spilling at least 210,000 gallons of crude oil a day into the Gulf of Mexico, creating an oil slick bigger than the state of West Virginia. It's now washing up on the environmentally fragile Louisiana coast. The cause of the initial explosion on the rig off of Louisiana's coast is still unknown, though there are multiple lawsuits already filed as a result of this incident, several against Halliburton, alleging that flaws in the cementing process that the Halliburton company performed on the rig led to the explosion. As far as the cleanup from the spill, both federal and local officials are urging British Petroleum to do more. While there are containment booms ringing the coastline, bad weather and 7-foot seas are pushing the oil over the top of the booms and into wetland wildlife refuges along the coast. Rescue workers have already found animals affected by the spill. The first patient was a young northern gannet. This bird's white feathers are now coated with black oil. Southerly winds are expected to push more of the spill toward land throughout the weekend. The military has thus far sent 2 C-130s to spray the oil slick with chemical dispersants. The Navy is sending booms, skimmers, and contractors to mop up the surface spill. The president has thus far sent to the scene the Secretary of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano, the Secretary of the Interior, Ken Salazar, and the head of the EPA, Lisa Jackson. The president himself and his senior advisor, David Axelrod, today also announced that in light of the disaster, don't expect many new drilling lease approvals anytime soon.
I've ordered Secretary Salazar to conduct a thorough review of this incident and report back to me in 30 days on what, if any, additional precautions and technologies should be required to prevent accidents like this from happening again. And we're going to make sure that any leases going forward have those safeguards.
Well, let's understand what the president has said. All he has said is that he is not going to continue the moratorium on drilling, but he hasn't. No additional drilling has been authorized, and none will until we find out what happened here and whether there was something unique and preventable here.
To members of Congress from the president's own party, though, that's apparently not enough of a reassurance. A letter from 4 of New Jersey's congressional delegation, including both of that state's senators today, urged the president to change his mind on drill, baby, drill. He said, while we appreciate the White House's announcement that no additional offshore drilling will be authorized until a full investigation of the accident is complete, we urge you to go further and reverse your decision on proposed new offshore oil and gas drilling for the outer continental shelf. This catastrophe demonstrates exactly why no new drilling should proceed in any U.S. waters, and certainly not in the Atlantic. This incident exposes the many deficiencies in worker safety, blowout avoidance technology, and oil spill cleanup plans for operations in the outer continental shelf. We simply are not prepared to make our pristine New Jersey shoreline the next test case for the oil companies' experiment in how to maximize profits and minimize regulations. Joining us now is Democratic Congressman Frank Pallone of New Jersey. He's one of the authors of that letter. Congressman Pallone, thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
I want to ask you about something that has actually just crossed the wires. The Associated Press is reporting that British Petroleum, in their exploration plan and environmental impact analysis for this well that's caused this huge spill, it's a 52-page plan, they repeatedly suggested it was unlikely or virtually impossible for an accident to occur that would lead to a giant crude oil spill and serious damage to beaches, fish, mammals, and fisheries. How damning is this incident and reports like this to the prospects of future offshore drilling in this country?
Well, it should be very damning, because the bottom line is that these spills happen all the time. You mentioned a few earlier. There's a spill in the Gulf almost every month. Some are smaller, some are bigger, but they accumulate. And the bottom line is, particularly when you go into the deeper waters, like this case, I think it's 5,000 feet, there is no technology that can prevent a spill. And when we talk about the Atlantic coast, oftentimes the drills would be even deeper. The problem with this rig is that there's no way to prevent the oil from continuing to spill out. It could actually end up continuing to flow until there is no more oil in the drill site. So there's no way to protect it. That's why we think that the president should reverse his position, go back to the moratorium that was in place about 2 years ago, which basically said there would be no new leasing, no new exploration of offshore oil sites on the continental shelf other than what had been approved or leased out earlier.
I think throughout the debate about offshore drilling, throughout the whole drill, baby, drill debate, through John McCain changing his position on that, through the ending of the moratorium, through the president's change of his position on these issues, I think through all of that, I do not think the American people understood that we approved drilling at depths where we don't know how to stop a leak.
Exactly.
We've approved technology. We've approved them to use technology to drill places when we don't know how to clean it up. Is the fundamental politics of this changing? Do we need a whole new regulatory approach to offshore drilling, or is all offshore drilling essentially politically at risk now?
I think that there's no way to guarantee technologically that these deep water wells, if you will, are safe and are not going to, cause this kind of a spill. As you say, you can't send an individual or a person down there. It's too deep. It has to be all done with robots. And I think this rig was actually one of the newest and most advanced technology. Big Oil is always saying, oh, don't worry, we'll have the technology that this won't happen. And it happened in one of the most advanced technological wells. So I don't think it's possible to have any kind of safeguards. And I think when the president said, oh, we're going to have better regulation, that's not the answer. It just shouldn't be done. And the problem is it's this old-fashioned technology. Today, we made the point, myself and the 2 senators and another congressman, Holt from our area, that really what we should be doing is moving towards renewable resources. Windmills. You know, we live at the shore, but we'd like to see offshore windmills, solar power. This is that renewable energy is really the way to go in the future, and we shouldn't fall back on this on fossil fuels and assume that these technologies are going to work. They don't.
Congressman Pallone, I interviewed a commander from the Coast Guard a few nights ago on this show when the gravity of the spill was first starting to become known. And it struck me in talking to him, even as he described everything that the government was doing, everything the Coast Guard was doing to try to contain this and their heroic efforts, it struck me, and he sort of admitted to the fact that the expertise in this field is not among the responders. It's not in the government. I don't think it's among the regulators either. The expertise in this field seems to be an industry, and it seems like those of us who are responsible not just for getting oil out of the ground, but those of us responsible for making sure that it's done safely, are actually sort of behind the technological curve. It reminds me of SEC regulators being over their head